I, the mighty king of hell, somehow ended up in bed with a drunken beauty in a daze. The next day, she threw a stack of cash at me and said, "Let's pretend last night never happened." I laughed. Do I look like someone who needs money? She sneered. Fine then, show me 10 billion and I'll be yours. I casually transferred the money, and the moment her phone vibrated, she froze completely. And when I arrived at the address for my new mission target, the person who opened the door turned out to be her again. I shook my still aching head, not yet fully sober from the hangover, and saw a thick stack of cash on the bed. I looked up to find a woman already dressed in designer clothes, staring coldly at me. Memories of last night slowly came back. A bar, strong liquor, and a crazy woman. She was indeed crazy enough and quite something. "Let's pretend nothing happened last night," she said, her voice colder than her expression. I looked her up and down in natural stunner, a figure that ordinary women couldn't match. I smiled. "Beautiful. We were both drunk last night. It was mutual. Do you have to humiliate me like this? Do I look like someone who's short on cash?" She blushed under my burning gaze, but quickly turned cold again. "So what do you want? Name a price. Within reason, I can meet it." I burst out laughing. Me, short of money? The most elite king of soldiers in Great Xia, revered as Yama by the entire underworld, would I be short of a little cash? I said, "I am not selling myself. It was mutually consensual. Taking money would be illegal. If you're short of money, name a number. Consider it the cost of the drinks I bought you last night." She laughed in anger. She, Su Li, president of Kiao Group in Jiangnan City, worth hundreds of millions short of money? Fine. But buy me a drink isn't cheap. 100 million, and that's a discount. I ignored the figure she said, because at that moment I threw off the covers to put on my pants and leave, but my gaze accidentally swept across the bedsheet. A spot of red. I froze completely. Damn. The woman who was drowning her sorrows at the bar last night was actually still a virgin. Worse, I didn't seem to have used any protection. What a sin. Cold sweat broke out instantly. But Suli thought I was scared by the 100 million. She sneered. "Can't afford it? Then don't talk big. I gave you money to buy supplements, but your performance last night was just average. Just average." I barely had time to pull up my pants before I lunged forward and pinned her against the wall. "You said I was average." She clearly panicked. Looking at the old scars all over my chest, there was more fear in her eyes, but she still put up a brave front. "You pervert. What do you think you're doing?" "No means no. If you want to go another round, I'm game. Let's see whose legs give out first." I admit I chickened out. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I didn't want some woman showing up at my door later with a kid, claiming I abandoned them. That would be a mess I couldn't explain. I put my clothes on, sat down on the sofa, and lit a cigarette. "Name your price, and we'll call it a day. Pretend nothing ever happened." She let out a scornful laugh. "What, scared? I thought you were tougher than that." I didn't want to waste words. 1 billion. Is that enough? She didn't say anything, but her face said it all. She was waiting for me to make a fool of myself. 2 billion. Still no reaction. 3 billion. She finally spoke, her tone teasing. "Final offer, 10 billion. If you can come up with that, I'm yours." 1 billion. I stubbed out the cigarette, staring at her. "Fine." She was clearly stunned for a second, then let out an angry laugh. "Do you even know what 1 billion means? If you can come up with that, say whatever you want." I said calmly, "No. I'm only 25 and not looking for a relationship. But if you insist on clinging to me, I guess it's not impossible. After all, beauties like you are rare." She was so angry her chest heaved. "Give me your bank account number." She didn't believe I could actually come up with 1 billion. I took her private bank card number, casually tapped a few things on my phone. A few seconds later, her phone vibrated. I watched her pull out her phone and saw her expression shift from mockery to confusion, then to shock, until she was completely frozen. "Your bank card has received a deposit of 1 billion. I returned the card to her, said goodbye, and turned to leave. As I walked out of the room, I could even feel her gaze boring into my back. She must be thinking, who is this man? I didn't have time to explain to her. I had a ton of questions myself. My master, that old man, sent me to Jiangnan City to protect a woman named Su Li for 3 years. He said this is the last mission. Once it's done, I'll be completely free. Arriving at the foot of Kiao Company's building, I looked up at the structure, still calculating in my mind. I wondered what Suli looked like if she was a beauty. These 3 years wouldn't be too much of a loss. Entering the lobby, The receptionist girl's eyes lit up noticeably when she saw me. Sir, who are you looking for? Hello, is Su Li here? She paused. Do you have an appointment? No, but I'm her personal bodyguard. Just tell me where her office is, and I'll go up myself. She looked me up and down, then chuckled. Handsome, you've been reading too many novels. Just because you've built some muscle doesn't make you our CEO's personal bodyguard. Don't tell me you're also dreaming of being our CEO's husband. I sighed helplessly. Fine, I'll come clean. I am your CEO's husband. Where's her office? She rolled her eyes. You sure can spin a tale. Our CEO is marrying Mr. Zhao of the Zhao Group next month. If he hears that, you'll be in for it. Getting married next month? I was about to say more. Footsteps sounded from the entrance. The receptionist quickly straightened up. Zeus. I turned around instinctively. Our eyes met. That face I had seen it just this morning. What are you doing here? Almost at the same moment, we said the same thing. The front desk girl was stunned. Sulie's face was cold as ice. Grinding her teeth, she said, Come up with me. She turned and walked straight to the elevator. Once in the office, she sat in her chair and stared at me like I was trash. Didn't you say it was over? Why are you in my company? What exactly do you want? I was just as crushed. Who knew the woman my master told me to protect was the very one I had a crazy night with last night? You think I wanted this? With your fierce personality, you really think I want to be tangled up with you? She slammed the table and stood up, pointing at the door. Get out. I'll refund you money right now. I couldn't care less. I got up and started to leave. I stopped at the door. No, if I walk out like this, the old man will skin me alive. I can't leave. I turned back. I have to stick with you. Are you crazy? Want another round? As soon as she said that, her own face turned red. I coughed. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, but her eyes still looked like she wanted to eat me alive. Actually, I came to find a job. I'll come clean. I'll be your personal bodyguard. Wherever you go, I go. You decide my salary. You know I don't need the money. She sneered. You? Can't even keep up physically, and you want to be a bodyguard? Eat more goji berries to replenish yourself. I exploded. I can take other insults, but saying I'm not capable, saying I'm no good? Just wait. Someday I'll show you what a real man is. She curled her lips and looked me up and down. I wonder who it was that stood in front of me this morning, not daring to move an inch. I was so angry I couldn't speak, but what she said was the truth. She seemed to think of something, suddenly changed her expression, and looked at me with a smile in her eyes. Since you want to be my personal bodyguard, you have to show me what you've got. I heard people in this line all have special skills, breaking stones on your chest, splitting bricks with your hand. If that's too much, at least a backflip. My face darkened. Are you treating me like a monkey? TSK, TSK. She shook her head. Looks like you as a bodyguard, no good. No good again. Is this woman dead set on those 2 words today, or what? Breaking a big rock on your chest, huh? Today, I'll show you something. I glanced at the table, picked up the thick glass ashtray. Its thickness and hardness were comparable to a stone. If I smashed that on your head, it would definitely crack it open. I clapped my hands together sharply. With a crack, the ashtray shattered into pieces, glass shards scattering all over the floor. Su Li stood frozen in place, her gaze shifting from shock to a certain indescribable complexity. Now, am I qualified enough? She snapped out of it, nodded, and said in a calm tone, Not bad. Go, get a broom and clean it up. I clenched my jaw. When I returned with the broom and cleaned up the broken glass, a delicate-looking woman suddenly burst through the door. My big boss, finally I get to see you. It was Su Li's bestie, Fong Qing. She saw me holding the broom and said with a pitiful look, Is this your new janitor? Such a handsome guy. It's a waste for him to be a janitor. I almost snapped the broom in half. Janitor? I'm the world's top lone wolf warrior, and I'm being mistaken for a janitor. You're the janitor. Your whole family are janitors. Su Li was beside herself with laughter, and later I found out that Fong Qing and Su Li had been whispering in the office for ages, all about me. What? Does he have a thing for you? A big shot casually throwing around 10 billion comes to be your bodyguard. What else could it be if not after you? I was standing outside the door, my mouth twitching, but I couldn't be bothered to explain. The afternoon just drifted by. When it was almost time to leave work, Su Li came out of the office and tossed me her car keys. You know how to drive, right? Of course. Once in the car, she sat in the passenger seat, slouching back in her seat, her eyes vacant, as if something was crushing her. I didn't ask questions, just drove quietly. We drove all the way to the entrance of a luxurious estate. She parked the car, then said, "Find yourself a place to stay tonight. Come pick me up tomorrow morning." I was taken aback. "Wait, aren't I your personal bodyguard? Can't you even arrange a place for me to stay? You want me to find my own spot? What? Am I interfering with your manhunting?" The moment I said that, her eyes reddened. She turned and stared at me, tears welling up in her eyes. "Just go. Don't come looking for me ever again. I know you don't want to take responsibility either, so this works out perfectly for you." I panicked. I'm most afraid of women crying. "So what did I do wrong? I can change, okay?" She choked out, "You can't change anything. I'm here tonight to get engaged. The Zhao family is not someone you can mess with. Even though you and I had a thing once, if Zhaoan finds out, you'll be in danger. I don't want to drag you into this." After hearing that, I was stunned for a second. "So it wasn't because of me? You scare me to death. I thought I made you cry. But you're wrong about me being in danger. I'm just a bodyguard. Why would they target me?" "Right. We agreed on close protection, so that's what I'll do. Come on, let's go together. It's just an engagement party. Nothing to be afraid of. It's a great thing." In Chu Fei's view, Su Li's engagement wasn't a bad thing. It had nothing to do with him anyway. A fierce woman like her, whoever ends up with her, is out of luck. But upon hearing this, Su Li was so angry her chest ached. "Get lost." Chu Fei shrugged, pulled her back into the car, stepped on the gas, and drove straight into the manor. Taking the opportunity, Su Li wiped her tears and returned to her previous demeanor. However, her red-rimmed eyes still showed that she had been crying. The manor was filled with countless luxury cars. In front of the luxurious villa, many top tycoons from Jiangnan had come to congratulate the Zhao family on their engagement. Chu Fei parked the car in an empty spot and opened the door for Su Li. Meanwhile, the people at the door all turned to look. Many gazes lingered on Su Li, sizing up the woman known as the most beautiful in Jiangnan. Zhao, standing at the door, had his eyes glowing the moment he saw Su Li. "Uncles and gentlemen, please come in. I'll go pick up my wife." At these words, everyone burst into laughter. They all knew well that the so-called wife was merely his plaything. The women by Zhao inside seldom lasted more than 3 days before being replaced. As for Su Li, even if she was the most beautiful in Jiangnan, in their eyes, she would last at most a week or two. "Xiui." Zhaoan walked quickly to Su Li, a smile on his face, striving to maintain a gentlemanly demeanor. Su Li's expression was cold and distant, not at all happy about the impending engagement, because before entering, she had already made up her mind to fight to the bitter end. Seeing her like this, Zhaoan's face turned somewhat sour. Just as he was about to reach out and take Su Li's hand, Chu Fei stepped forward and grabbed his wrist firmly. "Please show some respect to our CEO, or I'll beat you up." Su Li's equipration stiffened. Is this guy crazy? Didn't he know the man before him was Zhaoan? Zhaoan frowned, staring at Chu Fei. "Zhao Li, who is he?" He was quite annoyed by Chu Fei's sudden appearance. "He's the bodyguard I hired." "Chu Fei, let go of Mr. Zhao." "Bodyguard?" Zhaoan narrowed his eyes, a hint of mockery in his gaze as he looked at Chu Fei. Chu Fei released his grip. "Yes, ma'am." In truth, the moment he saw Zhao and Chu Fei knew this guy was no good. His steps were unsteady, a clear sign of overindulgence in worldly pleasures. He wondered why Su Li would choose such a man. Wasn't she afraid that he couldn't satisfy her needs in the future? "Zhao Li, are you hiring a bodyguard now to guard against me? Or is it that you're afraid I might do something to you?" As he spoke, Zhaoan looked at Su Li. His tone carried a great deal of displeasure. After tonight, the two of them would be engaged. In fact, it might as well be said they were already officially husband and wife, because sooner or later, Su Li would belong to him. "Mr. Zhao misunderstands. I simply think there's nothing wrong with having someone to protect me." Su Li remained as aloof as ever, her voice calm. Zhaoan said nothing more and walked shoulder to shoulder with Su Li toward the villa's main hall. Just as they reached the entrance, Zhaoan said to Chu Fei, "You can leave now. Miss Su won't be coming back tonight." Tonight, he would have Su Li. He had waited so long and finally had such an opportunity. He wasn't about to let it slip away easily. Hearing this, Su Li's heart trembled. She knew there was no escape. Her right hand tightly gripped the object in her bag, longing to take it out and smash it into Zhaoan's face right then, telling everyone present that just yesterday she had gone out having fun with another man putting a huge green hat on Zhao. I'm not your bodyguard. Who do you think you are to order me around? Did your mother give you that nerve? Upon hearing this, Su Li was dumbfounded. Although she didn't want Chu Fei to leave, she absolutely didn't want him to get into a conflict with Zhao. After all, this was the Zhao family's estate. Even if he had the skill to break bricks with his bare hands, there were at least 20 to 30 security guards here. Could he handle that many people on his own? On top of that, this guy had just insulted Zhao. Given Zhao's temper, he would definitely teach Chu Fei a harsh lesson. Sure enough, after hearing that, Zhao's face instantly turned cold. He looked at Chu Fei as if he were looking at a dead man. "You got some nerve, talking to me like that. For Xiao Li's sake, I'll give you a chance. Get lost. Otherwise, I'll break your dog legs." Upon hearing this, Chu Fei smiled. Most of those who dare to speak to him like that are already in hell. Whether I'm bold or not, your mother should know. And break my legs? I have to say, you're the most audacious bastard I've ever seen. Hearing this, Zhao was furious. He had originally planned, for Su Li's sake, to let this arrogant bodyguard off and tell him to get lost. But now he actually dared to insult him to his face. You're asking for it. Security. Instantly, several security guards in suits, looking like dogs dressed as men, appeared nearby with batons in hand. Su Li panicked at the sight and quickly pleaded for leniency. "Master Zhao, there is no need for this, is there?" "Yes, just a bodyguard. Let him go." Then she shot Chu Fei a meaningful glance, signaling him to leave quickly. After all, she didn't want Chu Fei to spend the rest of his life in a hospital bed. However, Chu Fei acted as if he hadn't seen it, casually glancing over the security guards. Zhao grabbed Su Li's chin, his expression fierce. "Su Li, let me tell you, no one dares to speak to me like that in Jiangnan. He's dead today. I said it. And not even Jesus can save him." Suddenly, the atmosphere became extremely tense. Several nearby security guards had already gripped their weapons, ready to swarm forward at any moment. Su Li's heart was in her throat. "Zhao, if you dare to touch him, this engagement is off." For Chu Fei's safety, she was willing to risk everything. Even if it meant Qiao Corporation going bankrupt, she didn't want to drag Chu Fei into this. At once, Zhao's eyes turned cold. He cast a chilling glance at Su Li and sneered. "Su Li, I don't understand why you care so much about a bodyguard. What? Is there something going on between you two? If that's the case, then he definitely won't leave here alive today." Su Li's heart trembled. In fact, Zhao's words hit the mark. But for now, she couldn't possibly say it openly to everyone. Just as she hesitated, Chu Fei spoke up. He casually reached up and picked his ear, then pointed at Zhao. "Hey, you got that right. You guessed it, President Su, and I do have something going on." That night, drunk and lost in passion, President Su was very forward. I can only tell you the feeling was so smooth. Too bad you'll never get to experience it. The look of sheer indulgence on Chu Fei's face instantly infuriated Zhao, and though he knew the guy was just saying it to provoke him, still, he couldn't bear anyone speaking about the woman he pined for in such a way. Meanwhile, Su Li's pretty face flushed crimson in an instant, but it quickly turned pale because they were on Zhao family turf. She simply couldn't understand how this guy had such guts. To actually say what happened last night, right in front of Zhao. "Very well. You've really pissed me off. Today, I'll teach you who to mess with and who to avoid in Jiangnan. Get him. Break his legs." Zhao waved his hand, and the guard beside him immediately raised their batons and charged forward. The next second, Su Li stepped sideways and shielded Chu Fei without hesitation. But the guard's baton struck her forehead instead. Bang! A dull thud echoed. Su Li felt something hot trickling down her face, her head spinning. She reached up and touched at her fair palm was stained with bright red blood. Her legs gave way, and she started to fall backward. Chu Fei moved swiftly, catching Su Li just before she hit the ground. In an instant, his face turned icy cold. Even he hadn't expected that tough woman to stand in front of him. The guards around hesitated, frozen in place after seeing Su Li's bleeding wound. Meanwhile, the business tycoons inside heard the commotion outside and came out one after another. "Xiao, what's going on?" A middle-aged man with a beard, wearing a mouse suit, walked out of the gate. He was Zhao Wei, the chairman of the Zhao Group and father of Zhao. Zhao had a sinister expression on his face, staring fiercely at Chu Fei. "It's nothing, Dad. You and Uncles go ahead and eat. I'll be there in a moment." The people around, seeing the situation, could guess what had happened and remained silent. Everyone was well aware of the Zhao family's domineering ways. Zhao Wei cast an indifferent glance at Su Li, who was bleeding, and Chu Fei, who was supporting her. Handle it quickly." With that, he turned to the others with a smile and said, "Everyone, sorry for disturbing your enjoyment. Come, let's go back and drink." Hearing this, the crowd went back into the hall and closed the door behind them. At this moment, Zhao En's gaze fell on Chu Fei. "Kid, you'll pay for what you just said. Get Su Li away from me and beat him to death." Zhao En waved his hand, and several security guards moved forward again. But this time, Chu Fei moved. He slowly laid Su Li flat on the ground, then slowly rose. Looking at the security guards approaching, a cold smile appeared on his face. If anyone familiar with him were here, they would know this was a sign of his anger. An ordinary man's rage spills blood within 5 steps. A king's rage leaves corpses scattered for miles. The king of hell's rage means death when he wills it. Even the Jade Emperor himself cannot stop it. Whoosh! A security guard's baton came crashing down toward Chu Fei's head. But Chu Fei raised his arm to block it, then punched the guard in the chest with his other hand. Bang! A muffled groan sounded. The guard was sent flying by the punch, all his ribs broken. He lay on the ground, his life unknown. Seeing their colleague attacked, the other security guards nearby rushed forward together. But, bang, bang, bang. In just a few seconds, all the security guards were lying on the ground. The agonized screams echoed in Zhao En's ears. Only then did he realize that Su Li's bodyguard was not just an ordinary one. Seeing the man walking closer and closer, Zhao En panicked and backed away step by step until he was pressed against the closed gate. "What do you want?" Chu Fei said nothing. Suddenly, he lunged forward and grabbed Zhao En by the throat with one hand. "You talk too much." Slap! A resounding slap echoed. This slap knocked out 2 of Zhao En's teeth. Ugh! With his throat squeezed, Zhao En couldn't spit out the knocked-out teeth. His eyes were wide with shock. But this was not over. Chu Fei raised his hand and threw a punch, landing it squarely on Zhao En's stomach. Then he let go of his hand. With a miserable cry, Zhao En swallowed the bloody tooth that had been knocked loose into his stomach. Gulp! Zhao En collapsed to the ground, his face twisted in agony, unable even to cry out. Only then did Chu Fei walk over to Su Li, looking helplessly at the woman who had taken a blow for him. "Why are you so reckless, woman? What is a woman doing in a man's fight?" With that, he scooped Su Li up from the ground. His gaze turned icy again as he looked at Zhao En lying on the floor. Approaching him, he stared at the tightly shut door, his tone growing cold. "In your next life, remember to be a good person." Before Zhao En could even process the words, he heard them. He jerked his head up, only to find Chu Fei standing right in front of him, as if he had appeared out of nowhere. His indifferent gaze was like that of someone looking at a dead man. Before he could plead for mercy, Chu Fei raised his leg and kicked him. Bang! With terrifying force, like kicking a soccer ball, the kick sent Zhao En crashing through the villa's front door. At that moment, countless eyes in the hall turned toward them in unison. When they saw Zhao En lying on the ground, his face covered in blood like a dead dog. Instantly, the entire hall fell silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was horrified this young master of the Zhao family might be dead. Chu Fei swept his gaze over everyone present, his tone calm. "Sorry for disturbing your enjoyment, everyone. I killed a stray dog. You all shouldn't mind, should you?" Zhao Wei in the crowd, looking at his son lying on the ground, could barely hold back. He rushed over and helped up Zhao En, whose spine had been shattered by the kick. But the latter gave no response. In fact, there was no breath left. Zhao Wei tremblingly reached out his hand to check for breath. "He's gone cold." He abruptly lifted his head and stared at the door. Chu Fei was holding Su Li like that, and under the light, it looked quite touching. But compared to his dead son, Zhao Wei instantly flew into a rage. "You deserve to die." He had only this one son, and as the heir of the Zhao group, he had been extremely indulgent toward Zhao En. So, even when Zhao En provoked those powerful families in Jiangnan, Zhao Wei would step in and smooth things over. But now his son was dead. Guards! Instantly, two bodyguards in suits appeared beside Zhao Wei. These were the experts he had hired at a high price to protect his own safety. Get him! I want him dead, without a place to be buried. The two bodyguards said nothing more and slowly advanced toward Chu Fei. The others around remained silent, not daring to provoke trouble at this moment, fearing they might bring disaster upon themselves. Watching the two bodyguards approach, Chu Fei took a deep breath. You beat the young, and now the old wants to step in? If you don't want to die, then get lost. A sharp shout echoed throughout the hall. The two approaching bodyguards halted in their tracks. A thin layer of cold sweat formed on their foreheads. With that single shout, they could tell they were no match for this young man. Fighting him would mean either death or severe injury. They were all trained fighters who had the upper hand, and the stronger presence was instantly clear. I'm out of here. If you want revenge, I'm always ready. Chu Fei carried Su Li and turned to walk outside. But the two bodyguards dared not move, as if frozen by a spell. What are you standing there for? Stop him! Zhao Wei roared at the two bodyguards, unable to understand why they had let the other party leave. One of them turned back and whispered, Boss, we are no match for him. It wasn't just the two of them in the entire Jiangnan region. No one would be a match for that man. The terrifying aura emanating from him could only belong to a strong man who had walked through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Zhao Wei's face was as dark as it could get. His son had been killed, yet he didn't dare to say a word. Even the two high-priced bodyguards he had hired dared not make a move. He was furious. At the hospital, Su Li slowly regained consciousness. A bandage wrapped around her forehead. A sharp pain throbbed in her head. She looked around and saw Chu Fei standing by the window, seemingly lost in thought. Chu Fei? Hearing Su Li's voice from behind, Chu Fei turned around. Seeing that Su Li had woken up, he breathed a slight sigh of relief. Then he let out a soft chuckle. I have to say, you've got some nerve. You actually took that hit with the stick. Does it hurt? Su Li rolled her eyes at him in exasperation. My head's bleeding, what do you think? By the way, how'd I get back? In Su Li's eyes, they were still on Zhao's turf. Leaving was pretty much impossible. She couldn't figure out how Chu Fei had managed to bring her back. You still ask. I carried you all the way to the car and took you to the hospital. So, how are you going to make it up to me? As he said this, Chu Fei's gaze lingered on Su Li's figure. She obviously noticed his lecherous look and immediately darkened her pretty face. Get lost. Don't even think about it. If I got hit, it's because of you. This is my business. I didn't want you involved. But since I'm back, what about Zhao? Su Li was worried that Zhao might cause trouble for Chu Fei. With the Zhao family's influence, dealing with someone is as easy as can be, isn't it? She didn't want Chu Fei to end up in danger because of her. Are you worried about me or that kidney-deficient bastard? Chu Fei tilted his head with a grin. Her pretty face flushed slightly, feeling a bit hot. Flattering yourself. Seeing her like this, Chu Fei knew this woman was definitely worried he'd be retaliated against. He chuckled lightly. Don't worry. That guy probably won't be bothering you for the rest of his life. But the awkward part is, you can't marry him anymore. That should be okay, right? Su Li's brows furrowed slightly upon hearing this. She felt there was a hidden meaning in Chu Fei's words. But, for a moment, she couldn't figure out what exactly he meant. Her wedding with Zhao was basically set in stone, almost impossible to change. Yet this guy was telling her she couldn't marry him. This, although she was somewhat afraid of the Zhao family's retaliation, at least for now, she wouldn't be harassed by Zhao. Thank you. Su Li thought for a moment before uttering these two words. Don't just talk empty words, I prefer actions. Chu Fei chuckled and stepped forward. Watching him approach slowly, Su Li instinctively covered her chest. Her beautiful eyes stared fixedly at him. What do you want? I'm warning you, this is a hospital. Chu Fei leaned in and gave her cheek a hard pinch. Little lady, you're really something else. Su Li's face flushed from his action. She shot him a fierce glare. You're the something else. Your whole family is. In my eyes, you're nothing but a bandit. From now on, I'm calling you bandit. Chu Fei shrugged nonchalantly. Whatever makes you happy. By the way, are you hungry? Do you want one? Su Li's mind instinctively went to a dirty place. Pfft, you pervert. You really are a thug. But Chu Fei took out 2 portions of fried rice and 2 ham sausages from the box on the bedside table. You're sick. If you don't want to eat, just say so. Why call me a pervert? It was only then that Su Li realized her mistake, and her face turned bright red. You meant this kind of ham sausage. Chu Fei looked at her with a puzzled expression. What else? Su Li quickly shook her head. No, that's what I meant too. I'm hungry, I want some. The next day, Su Li was discharged from the hospital. The wound on her forehead wasn't big, and after applying some medicine, there were no major issues. Chu Fei drove her to the company. As soon as she returned to her office, she received a call from her secretary. Xiao Yu, what's up? President Su, you're finally back. The chairman requests your presence at a board meeting. All the major shareholders are here. The secretary on the other end of the phone spoke in a hurried tone. Su Li's pretty face turned pale. She could guess what had happened. But for now, she had no choice but to steel herself and face the shareholders and her father. What's wrong? Chu Fei glanced at her pale little face and asked instinctively. Nothing. Just going to a meeting. Just wait for me here. With that, Su Li headed toward the meeting room. As soon as she pushed open the door to the meeting room, she heard a commotion inside. The shareholders were arguing fiercely, and she even caught some of them discussing selling their shares or pulling out their investments. When they saw Su Li enter, the entire meeting room fell silent. Seated at the head of the table was Su Li's father, Su Wu. Over 50, his hair was already streaked with gray. Greetings, Chairman, and to all the shareholders. Su Li walked to her seat and sat down. Su Wu glanced at the bandage on Su Li's forehead, his brows slightly furrowed. What exactly happened at the Zhao family's place yesterday? I hadn't even gone yet, and you were already gone. Originally, Su Wu had planned to go a little later. After all, it was his own daughter's engagement, so he definitely needed to be there. But what he never expected was that something would happen before he even arrived. When he heard that Zhao had been beaten to death by his daughter's bodyguard, he was completely stunned. When he woke up this morning, all the investment firms had pulled their funding, and the companies cooperating with them would rather terminate their contracts than continue, even if it meant paying breach penalties. He knew this was the Zhao family targeting Qiao Corporation. But now, the company's newly developed specialty drug was in its final stage, and only the last investment was needed. Once successful, the profit would be several times the investment. At this critical moment, they were just short of the Zhao family's investment. But something had happened. Su Li didn't know how to explain, so she could only lower her head and remain silent. Meanwhile, the other shareholders, seeing this, aggressively demanded answers. President Su, as the president of Qiao Corporation, you hold a considerable number of shares. Now that Zhao is dead, and the Zhao Group is putting so much pressure on our company, what do you plan to do? When she heard the first two sentences, Su Li didn't react much. But upon hearing the third sentence, her beautiful eyes widened in shock. She lifted her head and stared at the shareholder who had just spoken, disbelief written all over her face. What did you say? Zhao is dead? Seeing Su Li like this, Su Wu also spoke up. You're the one involved, and you don't know? That bodyguard you hired is a real piece of work. Not only did he beat up the Zhao family security guards, but he also killed Zhao, and on top of that, he threatened Zhao Wei, telling him to come for revenge whenever he wanted. Now that the Zhao family has retaliated, how do you plan to handle this? Su Li stood frozen on the spot. She had no idea that after she had passed out, Chu Fei had done something so monumental. No wonder he told me last night at the hospital that I wouldn't have to worry about Zhao anymore. Turns out, he had beaten Zhao to death. We're done for. Su Li knew that Qiao Corporation was now in a real bind. It would go bankrupt within 3 months at most. The only option now was to use the money Chu Fei had given her to stabilize the situation. She took a deep breath and began to speak. Chairman, fellow shareholders, I still have some money that can support the company's operations. As soon as she finished, some shareholders sneered. President Su, I know the company has been on the rise these past few years, and you made quite a bit of money. But your money is at most a few tens of millions. Is that really enough for the company's operations? Exactly. What can a few tens of millions do? I've decided to sell off my shares and see if anyone is willing to take them. If no one accepts, then the company will have to buy them back. Yes, I'm planning to sell mine too. For a moment, the shareholders present all said they wanted to sell their shares. Not to mention anything else. Just their shares alone were worth at least over 100 million. Seeing the situation getting a bit out of control, Su Wu also tried to persuade them. Everyone, don't panic. There's bound to be a turnaround. I think. Before he could finish, Su Li spoke up. Fellow shareholders, you want to dump your shares, right? Fine. As the company's president, I have the right to buy back shares as well. I'll buy back your shares at today's opening price. Settle on the spot. Are you all willing? Su Li knew these people were all fair-weather friends. When Kiao Company was on the rise, they couldn't stop boasting. But as soon as it started to decline, they were ready to sell their shares. President Su, do you have that much money? Exactly. They all chimed in, since everyone knew the company's dividends over the past 2 years. Everyone was well aware of how much money each person had. Whether I have it or not, you don't need to worry. I'm asking you, are you selling or not? Su Li's face turned completely cold. Since they wanted to leave, this was a good opportunity to gather all the company's shares. Nonsense. I don't care if you have that much money or not. What you need to do is beg the Zhao family for mercy. As Zhao and's fiancé, you should go and fulfill your mourning duties for him. Let me tell you, the Zhao family is already preparing the funeral. You're not going anywhere. I'll personally take you to the Zhao family at noon. Meeting adjourned. Su Wu walked out of the meeting room with a cold face. Su Li's expression was also exceptionally grim. She walked toward the office in a daze. As soon as she entered the office, she saw Chu Fei sitting on the sofa, cracking sunflower seeds and crossing his legs. She let out a bitter laugh. You really are something. You beat Zhao unto death. And you kept me in the dark. You're amazing. Faced with Su Li's sarcasm, Chu Fei was a bit confused. Didn't I tell you last night? Su Li ignored him, slumping limply in her office chair. Do you know what? My dad wants me to wear mourning garments for Zhao. Wear mourning garments? Hearing that word, Chu Fei's gaze carried a hint of confusion. He found it strange Zhao was already dead. Why would Su Li's father want her to wear mourning garments? Could it be that he was dead set on sending his daughter into a wealthy family? But even so, would the Zhao family accept it? If it were him, he definitely wouldn't agree. I can't quite understand why your father would do this. Chu Fei voiced his doubt. Su Li gave a bitter laugh and shook her head slightly. Isn't it because the Zhao family has vast influence in Jiangnan? In all of Jiangnan, almost no one dares to cross the Zhao family. Just this morning, every corporate group that had partnerships with our company terminated their contracts almost overnight. Now the company is in a state of panic, and many people are starting to think about resigning. You can't wrap fire in paper. The Zhao Group's offensive directly shattered the morale of Kiao Company. No one believes that Kiao Company can withstand the Zhao Group to the very end. Isn't terminating the contract a good thing? With the compensation money, there is plenty of chance to make a comeback. He had picked up some business judgment through osmosis from his family background. In his view, termination wasn't necessarily bad, unless Kiao Company had staked all their chips on the final move. Sure enough, as soon as Su Li opened her mouth, she explained the current state of Kiao Company. After hearing her out, Chu Fei shook his head. Basically, Kiao Company was already on the edge of a cliff, just one step away from falling into hell. Forget it, you wouldn't understand this anyway. Wait at noon, I'm going to the Zhao residence. You don't have to come with me. Okay. Though they hadn't known each other long, Su Li knew that once Chu Fei made up his mind, even a team of oxen couldn't pull him back. If Chu Fei goes with her to the Zhao family, he will only mess things up. She didn't want any more unexpected incidents. No. Chu Fei shook his head. I promise to protect you closely. How can I not follow you? Su Li pursed her lips and said nothing. Her expression was complicated, and no one knew what she was thinking. I say, a tough woman like you, why are you cowering at the slightest thing? Cheer up. Let me tell you today, even if you tear the sky apart, I'll have your back. Don't doubt me. I have what it takes. Hearing this, Su Li's previously gloomy expression suddenly broke into a laugh. She gave him a big eye roll. I really don't know where a bodyguard like you gets such confidence. But I'm curious, where did you get all that money? To be able to pull out that much money at once, are you really willing to be my bodyguard? Su Li had always been curious about Chu Fei's identity. In fact, she had even asked her best friend to investigate Chu Fei's background. But the result she got was nothing, as if there was no information about Chu Fei at all. Actually, I'm a top-tier rich second generation. My family's estate alone covers thousands of acres. One of the top 3 families in the world. With a word from me, I could paralyze the economy of some small countries. Chu Fei sat on the sofa, crossing his legs with a nonchalant air. Su Li glanced at him and said, rather sarcastically, "A top-tier rich second generation? No wonder you could pull out $1 billion at once. TSK, your family's assets must be even more than your storeroom, right?" Chu Fei wasn't stupid. He clearly understood the implication of Su Li's words. "You don't believe me?" In fact, everything he said was true. But Su Li simply didn't believe him. "Believe you? Of course I do. You're a top-tier rich second generation. Happy now." Chu Fei looked helpless, feeling like this woman was taking him for a fool. Just as the two were teasing each other, a knock came from outside the door. Hearing this, Chu Fei stood up from the sofa and moved to stand beside Su Li. Su Li also regained her aloof demeanor. "Come in." The office door swung open, and Su Wu's expression was cold. "Let's go. I've already called the Zhao family." At these words, Su Li's heart shuddered. Chu Fei frowned, about to say something, but Su Li gently tugged his sleeve. Su Wu noticed this small gesture, but said nothing. Instead, he spoke coldly. "This time, you don't need to come along as her bodyguard." He had already gotten wind that the Zhao family had stationed countless guards inside the Zhao manor. If Chu Fei dared to show up, he would definitely never make it back. "No one can stop me from going where I want to go." Chu Fei never bothered to be polite in response to Su Wu's condescending tone. "Then you can leave. My daughter doesn't need a murderer as her bodyguard." Su Wu turned back, his gaze coldly fixed on Chu Fei. "Dad, can you just stop talking?" Su Li, who had been silent all along, finally spoke up. "I'll wait outside for 3 minutes. Sort this out yourself." With that, Su Wu turned and walked out of the office. In the office, only Chu Fei and Su Li were left again. Their eyes met, and it was Su Li who spoke first. Actually, she didn't want Chu Fei to take any more risks either. Even if she had to go and mourn in funeral clothes, she wouldn't be in mortal danger. Surely the Zhao family wouldn't embarrass her in front of all the top figures of Jiangnan. "I told you if the sky falls, I'll hold it up. What are you afraid of? Worst case, I'll just flip the table." Looking at him like this, Su Li knew she couldn't talk him out of it. Had to speak in a pleading tone. "Then you mustn't act recklessly later. Follow my lead with your eyes, okay?" Chu Fei looked at her gaze and nodded slightly. Then he slowly reached out, moving his hand towards Su Li's delicate face. The latter instinctively tried to dodge, but Chu Fei grabbed her neck. "Don't move. You have sleep in your eyes." Su Li pushed him away, her pretty face flushing red. "You brute. I don't need you to do it." Then she wiped the corner of her eye, but there was nothing there. "You lied to me?" "Chu Fei Jukas, Li. I just wanted to take advantage of you." Su Li's face darkened. "Get lost." Their flirtatious banter was too much for Su Wu, who was waiting outside the door. "Is this fun for you?" Instantly, Su Li quickly lowered her head and shot Chu Fei a meaningful glance. Chu Fei shut his mouth too. After all, this old man is Su Li's father, so I had to give him that much face. Especially since I was openly flirting with his daughter. "You can go, but remember, no matter what happens, don't say a word and don't make a move. I'll find a way to bring you back safely, understand?" Su Wu knew that Chu Fei had to go, no matter what. He didn't want to resort to a last stand unless absolutely necessary. "Yes, Chairman." The three of them took the elevator down and drove straight to the Zhao residence. But at the Zhao residence, white lanterns were hanging everywhere. The Zhao estate was blanketed in pure white. The original villa hall had now been transformed into a massive funeral shrine. A golden thread Nama coffin sat silently in the very center. Incense and candles lit up the entire room. A crowd stood around, dressed in mourning white. A woman knelt on the ground, sobbing bitterly. Zhao Wei stood nearby, his face cold and terrifying. Many guests around were still holding bouquets, dressed in black suits, silently placing them aside. Then they bowed to the coffin before leaving the hall to chat outside. However, the topic of their conversations revolved around Zhao and's cause of death. There were not many people present that day, and Zhao Wei had declared that the cause of Zhao En's death was to be kept absolutely confidential. Thus, the others had no idea how Zhao En had actually died. Just as everyone was smoking outside and talking among themselves, a familiar license plate caught their attention. In fact, most people knew that yesterday was the day of Zhao En's engagement to Su Li's daughter, and most had received invitation from the Zhao family to attend the engagement ceremony. But before they could even arrive, they were told not to come and instead to attend Zhao and's funeral the next day. It was then that they suddenly realized Zhao and had died. And he had died on the very day of his engagement. Who would be so bold as to lay a hand on Zhao? Suspicion naturally fell on the Su family. At this moment, seeing the Su family's car drive into the estate, many pairs of eyes turned to look. The next moment, they saw the driver step out and open the car door. But when they saw the father and daughter of the Su family step out, they were all momentarily stunned. Su Wu was fine, dressed in a black suit with a stern expression. But Su Li was different. She wore a black dress, a black coat over her shoulders, and held a bouquet of flowers in her hands. By the looks of it, she had come to burn incense for Zhao. At that moment, Zhao Wei and Hall naturally also saw Su Wu and his daughter outside the door. But his gaze didn't linger on them. Instead, it fell on Chu Fei following behind the two. At that moment, his eyes turned bloodshot. "You still dare to come, courting death?" With Zhao Wei's roar, everyone present was startled. They thought Zhao Wei was referring to Su Li and couldn't help but feel confused. As Zhao and's fiancé, wasn't it only right for Su Li to come and offer incense? Why was Zhao Wei so furious? But those who were present that day had also seen Chu Fei standing behind Su Wu and his daughter. Their hearts suddenly jolted. None of them expected that the murderer would dare to show up again. Was he not afraid of death? Last time, he had managed to escape. But this time, Zhao Wei had deployed hundreds of security guards across the estate. No matter how formidable Chu Fei was, even the strongest fists couldn't beat 100 hands facing 100 men. Even the best martial artist would have to back down. At this moment, Su Wu also spoke up. "Chairman Zhao, today is not a fitting day for bloodshed. I deeply apologize for yesterday's incident. I brought my daughter here today to pay our respects to your son in mourning. As for the engagement, let us call it off. Does that work?" Su Wu spoke like a refined scholar. Listening from the side, Chu Fei felt somewhat surprised. He hadn't expected Su Li's father to possess such skill. Hearing this, Chu Fei realized that since Su Wu dared to bring his daughter here, he must have a backup plan. Moreover, he could ensure that the two of them would be able to leave the Zhao estate safely. "Su Wu, I can give you face, but that brat must be buried with my son today." Zhao Wei clapped his hands. In an instant, dozens of thugs wielding machetes surged in from all around. Suddenly, the hall, which had been somewhat spacious, became packed to the brim. Meanwhile, those outside all widened their eyes in shock. From Zhao Wei's words, it was hard to guess that the murderer was the young man beside Su Wu and his daughter. But how could that kid have dared to do such a thing? "Chairman Zhao, this young man is by my side. As for what happened yesterday, he went too far. Today, I've come for 3 reasons. First, to pay respects to your son. Second, to break off the engagement. And third, to discuss compensation." Upon hearing this, Zhao Wei laughed in anger at his words. But before he could speak, the woman who had been kneeling and crying suddenly stood up. She glared at Chu Fei beside Su Li with reddened eyes. "Did he kill Xiaoan?" Zhao Wei said coldly. "Yes." But the woman snapped. "Then what are you waiting for? Go cut him down." She was Xiaoan's mother, Lu Sui. She was the only female crime boss in Jiangnan City a long time ago, and only retired after marrying Zhao Wei. Though she no longer had her former influence, many still remembered her name. On the surface, the Zhao family relied on Zhao Wei to run the business, but when they encountered tough opponents, Lu Sui would step in. The two, one in legitimate business and one in the underworld, had built the Zhao group to its current level. Now, with the murderer of her son right in front of her, there was no way she could hold back her temper. As those thugs were about to move forward, Su Wu's face darkened. "It seems you two are determined to spill blood." Lu Sui couldn't care less about Su Wu. She had no connection with him at all. "So what? I may let you and your daughter off, but that kid today, he must be buried with my son." Su Wu's gaze fell on Zhao Wei. "Chairman Zhao, are you sure you don't want to negotiate?" Zhao Wei looked at Su Wu, his face darkening. In truth, what he feared wasn't Su Wu himself, but the man behind Su Wu. Standing behind Su Wu was the second most powerful figure in Jiangnan City. Though the exact relationship between them was unclear, if anything happened to Su Wu, that person would definitely step in. Finding a few excuses to strike at the Zhao group would create quite a troublesome situation. Even though the man behind Su Wu didn't involve himself in business rivalries and wouldn't favor any side. If someone resorted to underhanded methods, he wouldn't just stand by and do nothing. Chaidaman Su. In this situation, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Su Wu took a deep breath. Then what do you plan to do? Lu Sui's eyes were reddened. She also knew who was backing Su Wu, which was why she didn't interrupt their conversation. Before Zhao Wei could finish his words, Chu Fei couldn't stand listening anymore. From start to finish, it seemed like he was just someone who could be pushed around however they wanted. If the tiger didn't show its might, they'd really take it for a kitten. He stepped forward, standing in front of Su Li. Chairman Zhao, right? Honestly, I did hit a bit too hard earlier. I was even thinking about apologizing to your son. But now I see there's no need for that. Your son's such trash, a waste of air alive, a waste of land dead. Might as well cremate him, scatter his ashes in the garden, at least they could be fertilizer. These words shocked everyone present. The air froze. Even Su Wu stared at Chu Fei in astonishment. He couldn't figure out what this kid meant by suddenly jumping in and saying all that while he was in the middle of a perfectly good negotiation. Had he decided to add fuel to the fire, thinking Zhao Wei's anger wasn't hot enough already? Chop him to death. Lu Sui completely lost it. She no longer cared about anything else. She had to kill this brat. Zhao Wei's breathing grew rapid as he snatched a cleaver from one of the thugs, ready to strike. Seeing things spiral out of control, Su Wu mentally cursed Chu Fei. Su Li was also utterly stunned. She never expected Chu Fei to be so audacious. Just when everyone thought the brat would be hacked to pieces, a voice came from outside. What's all the commotion? Who's drawn a blade? Injuring someone wouldn't be good. The commanding voice made everyone turn to look. A middle-aged man in a suit and glasses walked toward the morning hall with a faint smile. Seeing the middle-aged man, everyone present made way. For no other reason than that the man was Jiangning, the top figure in Jiangnan City. Everyone stopped. Zhao Wei and Lu Sui shouted this almost at the same time. Starting a fight in front of the top figure was like asking for trouble. And this top figure did not take sides with any business or individual. He only acted according to official rules. Even if you had a massive enterprise in Jiangnan, if you dared to cross him, you could expect your business to be shut down. Unless you had someone backing you who was even bigger than him. Mr. Jiang, why are you here? I really should have come to welcome you. Zhao Wei put down his large cleaver and gestured for all the thugs to withdraw. The funeral hall, which had been somewhat crowded, suddenly became much emptier. Su Wu walked to the front of the crowd and said, I heard about Chairman Zhao's son's tragic death, so I came specifically to pay my respects. I came uninvited, and I hope Chairman Zhao will forgive my presumption. Upon hearing this, Zhao Wei broke out in a cold sweat. Those words clearly implied that Zhao Wei had not invited him. After all, there were quite a few figures from officialdom present, but he hadn't invited this top figure, which clearly showed disrespect. Mr. Jiang, what are you saying? Your presence alone is an honor to my son. If he knows in the afterlife, he would be proud. Zhao Wei quickly said respectfully. However, Lu Sui beside him seized the chance to burst into tears. Mr. Jiang, you must seek justice for my son. The murderer of my son is right here at the scene. You must arrest him and bring him to justice. At these words, Zhao Wei's eyes lit up. That's right, Jiang Ning was here. So even if Su Wu brought out the second most important figure, it wouldn't matter. Moreover, so many people had witnessed the incident just now. With both human testimony and physical evidence present, given Jiang Ning's temper, even if this kid didn't die, he'd spend the rest of his life in prison. Mr. Jiang, my son was beaten to death. You must seek justice for my son. Zhao Wei's eyes were also filled with tears, and he was on the verge of kneeling down. But Su Wu's expression darkened Jiang Ning's appearance was truly unexpected. After all, he knew Jiang Ning's personality well. Moreover, as the number one figure, his influence surpassed that of the number two. Su Li's little face also turned pale as she tightly gripped Chu Fei's sleeve. Lifting her head, she looked at Chu Fei's face, her heart full of guilt. If she hadn't brought him along, this wouldn't have happened. Oh, is that so? Since Chairman Zhao has spoken, as an official, I naturally must enforce the law fairly. Upon hearing this, Zhao Wei and his wife's eyes lit up. Now that Jiang Ning had spoken, there was no escaping it. As long as this kid was thrown into prison, They had 1,000 ways to make him die there. It's him, Mr. Jiang. Zhao Wei raised his hand and pointed directly at Chu Fei. At that moment, Su Li's grip on Chu Fei's sleeve tightened even more nervously. Terrified that Chu Fei would be taken away, Jiang Ning turned to look at Chu Fei, his expression exceedingly calm, as if not surprised that Chu Fei was the killer. Su Wu couldn't hold back any longer and began to explain. Mr. Jiang, this is a misunderstanding. Su Li also explained, Mr. Jiang, my bodyguard acted excessively only to protect my safety, leading to Zhao En's death. And you see, they struck me first, which provoked my bodyguard's reaction. She pointed at her forehead, where the bandage still showed a trace of red blood. Jiang Ning nodded slightly. But since the killing has indeed occurred, I still need to take him back for investigation, regardless of whether it was excessive self-defense. Upon hearing this, Su Li's heart sank to the bottom. Once the charges were confirmed, Chu Fei would likely spend the rest of his life in prison. Thank you, Mr. Jiang, for upholding justice. Zhao Wei immediately bowed without hesitation. Jiang Ning waved his hand. No need. I will look into this matter. Then he walked to the morning hall, lit 3 incense sticks. Su Wu knew that he couldn't stop Jiang Ning from taking Chu Fei away today. He could only take a deep breath, his expression grim, and say to Chu Fei, once you get to the station, remember to say that they struck first. You acted in self-defense, and it was excessive. Even if you're sentenced, it won't be long. I'll find a way to get you out. Chu Fei stood. It's fine. Su Li, however, looked at him with slightly reddened eyes, saying nothing. Chu Fei smiled and reached out to ruffle her hair, signaling her not to worry. What's there to panic about? Everyone's got connections. Maybe this Mr. Jiang is actually a friend of my dad's. Hearing this, Su Li gave him a scornful look. This guy never thinks before he boasts. All right, everyone, I won't be staying long. Chairman Zhao, my condolences. I'll take him away now. With that, he looked at Chu Fei. Brother, let's go. Chu Fei did not hesitate. He turned and followed Jiang Ning and his 2 secretaries. Seeing Chu Fei being taken away, Zhao Wei and Lu Sui's moods improved considerably. By the way, Chairman Su, you mentioned compensation just now. Why don't we go inside and have a proper talk? And regarding the engagement, I think we need to have a serious discussion too. Zhao Wei was not a merciful man. He wouldn't let this matter drop so easily. His son was dead, someone had to pay the price. Su Wu's face darkened in a terrifying way, but he had no choice now. Since the top figure had shown up, even the second-tier figure behind him might not be of much help. He had no choice but to negotiate with them. Before he could speak, Su Li spoke up. Her beautiful face was cold as frost. He.s. dead, the engagement is naturally dissolved. As for compensation, not a single cent. In a luxurious private room of a cafe, Jiang Ning, a direct subordinate of Jiang Nan, greets the young master. Jiang Ning bowed deeply to Chu Fei, who was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed. Chu Fei waved his hand, signaling him to sit down. Only then did Jiang Ning sit respectfully in the seat opposite Chu Fei. In fact, from the moment Chu Fei saw Jiang Ning, he knew that this was a member of the family's inner circle. He hadn't expected that someone from the family would have become a big shot in Jiangnan. Moreover, it seemed the family had already received his news this quickly. Any recent news from the family? Hearing Chu Fei's question, Jiang Ning's expression turned somewhat unpleasant. Seeing his expression, Chu Fei frowned slightly. What's wrong? Jiang Ning hesitated for a moment, but eventually spoke up. Young master, the family situation is still relatively stable for now. Not much affected. Phoenix and we are engaged in a business war, locked in a stalemate. The old master asked me to tell you to just stay put in Jiangnan. He can handle the overseas matters. Hearing this, Chu Fei's frown deepened. However, he couldn't interfere in business matters. As long as the other side didn't resort to underhanded tactics, he could let it be. But if they were willing to use dark methods, he would definitely not stand by and do nothing. I understand. By the way, do you know anything about the Su family's background? The Su family? Jiang Ning thought for a few seconds before speaking. Young master, I don't know much about the Su family. But from what I know, the Su family was just a small clan with a small company a long time ago. Under Su Wu's leadership, they gradually built up Qiao Company and also managed to connect with the second in command of Jiangnan. For a family like theirs, I can't imagine how they managed to connect with the second in command. Jiang Ning was also curious. The Su family had no notable background, so why was the second in command willing to cooperate with them? Although there was no substantial support, many people knew that the second in command was backing the Su family. Oh, that is indeed strange. Chu Fei was also puzzled, feeling that something was off. Master, why did you want me to protect Su Li? A girl from an obscure little family worthy of having the king of hell personally protect her? Oh, young master, there's another thing the master asked me to tell you. As he said this, Jiang Ning's expression grew noticeably awkward. What? Chu Fei was a little surprised. It's the master wants you to go on a blind date. Here are the details of your potential match. Would you like to take a look? He then opened a file on his phone. A photo of a beautiful woman with an aloof expression, dressed in a uniform, carrying a small handbag with a slender figure. Below the photo was an address and a name. Wang Xie, chairman of Juanhao Group. The Wang family? The same Wang family? Upon seeing the surname Wang, Chu Fei was immediately surprised. I think that's right. Yang Ning noted. The Wang family was quite a large clan in the country, with family businesses spread across the entire Xia Empire. Not bad. I'll go meet her when I have time. Chu Fei noted. Seeing that the young master didn't refuse, Jiang Ning breathed a sigh of relief. Someone as outstanding as the young master rarely takes a fancy to ordinary girls. By the way, young master, should I step in and warn the Zhao family? Jiang Ning was well aware of the immense power and influence held by the sole heir of this family before him. With just one word, he could make the entire Zhao family disappear from Jiangnan. But the young master was used to keeping a low-profile opponents like the Zhao family weren't even worthy of his attention. No need, just a small family. You focus on your work. If I need anything, I'll find you. Jiang Ning nodded and handed over his business card with both hands. Young master, my number is on this card. If anything comes up, just give me a call. I'll take care of it immediately. Chu Fei waved his hand. You go back first. I'll head back on my own later. Yes, young master. Only then did Jiang Ning leave the cafe with his men. 10 minutes after Jiang Ning left, Chu Fei finally stepped out of the cafe. Looking at the data sent to his phone, he felt a bit frustrated. But for now, he couldn't go find Su Li just yet. After all, he had just been brought out by Jiang Ning, and going back would be too childish. Glancing at the information in his hand, he thought it over and decided to go meet this so-called blind date. Since his old man arranged it, he had to at least show some respect. He hailed a taxi and headed straight to Juanhao Group. Arriving at the building, he called the woman named Wang Xie. Hello, who are you looking for? A cold female voice came from the other end of the line. Wang Xie. I'm your blind date. Got a moment? I'm downstairs at your company. Want to come down and chat? In the top floor office of Juanhao Group, Wang Xie frowned as she listened to the man's voice on the phone. She had also received a call from her father yesterday, saying he had set up a blind date for her. As for the man's identity, her father didn't mention a single word, only insisting that she had to make him her boyfriend. Wang Xie was puzzled what family in the Great Xia could compare to her own Wang family. The number of people pursuing her could circle the entire Jiangnan city once. But recalling her father's words, she still didn't refuse. She was curious to see what background this so-called blind date candidate actually had. After hanging up, she took the elevator downstairs. Just as she reached the entrance, she saw a man dressed in bodyguard attire squatting nearby in the flower bed, smoking. Frowning, she wondered if this guy was her blind date. He looked like nothing more than a little security guard. Had her father gotten it wrong? At that moment, Chu Fei happened to spot Wang Xie and tossed away his cigarette butt. Well, to be fair, this woman was quite pretty. Compared to Su Li, she had her own charm. Su Li was the type who acted tough on the surface, but was actually fragile inside. This one, however, seemed cold and aloof on the outside who knew what she was really like inside. Hello, let me introduce myself. I'm Chu Fei. He extended his hand. Wang Xie suppressed her discomfort and shook his hand. Wang Xie. She just touched it briefly and then withdrew her hand. Want to talk? Wang Xie said nothing, just nodded. The two walked to the milk tea shop across the street and ordered 2 cups of milk tea. Tell me about yourself, your identity. I like to be straightforward. I don't like beating around the bush. Wang Xie crossed her arms and looked at Chu Fei coldly. From the first glance, She had no favorable impression of this man. Me? Just a little security guard, no social insurance. Monthly salary of 1,800, laughing all day long. Chu Fei slurped a mouthful of milk tea, chewing the tapioca pearls. But Wang Xie's frown deepened, and as she looked at Chu Fei, she felt that this guy was simply out of his mind. Do you think this is fun? If you're unwilling to talk, I won't force you. Wang Xie had a strong sense of family honor. For the sake of the family's reputation and interests, she wouldn't mind marrying a complete stranger, even if he were ugly and overweight. That was her mindset. I'm telling you the truth. I'm not lying to you. Chu Fei looked at her very seriously. Seeing this, Wang Xie stood up to leave. For someone like him, she had no reason to stay and waste her breath. You really want to know? Just as she took a step, Chu Fei spoke up. Wang Xie turned back to look at him. What do you think? Although she didn't know exactly what background this man had, from her father's tone, it was easy to tell that his family was definitely not inferior to the Wang family, and might even be more prominent. With someone like that, if she could secure greater benefits for the family, she would be willing to give herself. Chu Fei smiled Li. Then if I tell you what's in it for me, I'll be your girlfriend. Without any hesitation, Wang Xie said it outright. Upon hearing that, Chu Fei was stunned. This woman, she's got to be a bit crazy, right? We've only met once, and she wants to be my girlfriend? No. Then I can be with you once. Looking at Wang Xie's proud figure, Chu Fei thought, this benefit isn't bad. But then, he wasn't a man so desperate. No need. If you want to know my identity, you can ask the higher-ups of your family. If they're unwilling to tell you, that means you're not ready to know yet. This blind date, I just came to go through the motions. You're not my type. Chu Fei smiled slightly and took a sip of his milk tea. To be honest, he didn't like the Wang Xie in front of him purely because of her personality. But then again, her figure was another matter. On the other hand, Su Li was more to his taste. Although that girl was a bit reckless, at least she was more assertive than this woman here. Really, what type do you like? A mature woman? A lowly? Or an innocent type? As long as you can name it, I can change to your liking. Wang Xie actually already knew in her heart, since her father wouldn't tell her this man's identity. It meant that the other party's background was even bigger than the Wang family's. If she could really be with him, then nothing else mattered. I want colorful sassiness. Can you deliver? Chu Fei's shocking words left Wang Xie frozen in place. It took her a long moment to react. You're doing this on purpose? Chu Fei smiled without a word. Wasn't it obvious enough? Fine. Next time we meet, you'll see. With that, Wang Xie turned and walked away, leaving Chu Fei dumbfounded. It seemed he had really messed up this time. Colorful sassiness? What kind of wild talk was that? Chu Fei watched her leave through the door and shook his head slightly. Tough girls are the best. That woman is too desperate. I can't stand it. He paid the bill and walked out of the milk tea shop. As soon as he stepped outside, he received a call from Su Li. After hesitating for a long time, he still answered. How are you? Are you okay? Su Li's worried voice came through the phone. I'm Fina. That person didn't think I looked like a bad guy. He just gave me a few words of advice and let me go. I'm on my way now. Hearing Chu Fei's reply, Su Li breathed a long sigh of relief. Thank goodness he wasn't in trouble. Where are you? I'll come pick you up. I'm on Prosperity Street. Over 10 minutes later, Su Li drove up to the Prosperity Street sign. Boss, you can't pick me up in person. I'm truly overwhelmed by the honor. As soon as he got in the car, Chu Fei slipped back into his roguish manner. However, Su Li didn't look pleased and was in no mood to joke with him. What's wrong? As she drove, Su Li began telling him about what had happened at the Zhao family's place. Su Li rejected all the conditions Su Wu had previously proposed. The Zhao family was completely enraged and launched an all-out war against Qiao Company. Most enterprises in Jiangnan City severed all cooperation with Qiao Company. This plunged Qiao Company into a period of utter darkness. If they could turn things around, they would no longer have to bow to the Zhao family. If they couldn't, they would never rise again. Hearing Su Li's explanation, Chu Fei said nothing, but had already made up his mind. This Zhao family sure was kicking up quite a fuss. What do you think I should do now? Su Li spoke, her face full of gloom. Just wing it. Besides, you're not short on money. The money I gave you before should be enough to keep your company going for several months, right? Su Li thought of the money in her card and couldn't help but give him a roll of her eyes. She had sacrificed herself to get that money. By the way, can I ask what the new drug your company is researching is for? Su Li took a deep breath. This is classified. I can't tell you. The effects of a new drug were an absolute secret. Apart from the researchers, her, as the CEO, and the chairman, not even the major shareholders knew, let alone the other employees in the company. However, I can tell you this. Once this drug is successfully developed, at the very least, the entire world will import it from our company. Its value could reach hundreds of billions, or even more. It will propel Kiao Corporation to become one of the top companies in the entire Great Xia Kingdom. Upon hearing Su Li's words, Chu Fei was also somewhat surprised. A new drug could generate such enormous profits? If this got out, countless people would likely choose to acquire Kiao Corporation at this moment, or even bribe the researchers under her. Aren't you afraid that your researchers will be bribed by others? Hearing this, Su Li chuckled. Bribe my people? Actually, they don't even know where my research base is. To be honest, I'm not afraid to tell you, more than half of the research members in my lab haven't been home for a whole year. Even their calls with family are under our surveillance. This was what Su Li felt most reassured about. At least she didn't have to worry about her researchers being bribed by outsiders. Chu Fei finally understood that this fierce woman was meticulous in her work, even thinking of that detail. As they talked, they arrived at a villa. The villa wasn't large, covering just over 200 square meters. Except for Su Li, there was no one else inside the villa. After parking the car, Su Li said wearily to Chu Fei, I'm going to my room to sleep for a while. Find yourself a room to stay in. Without my permission, don't you dare enter my room. Got it? You thug. Unexpectedly, Chu Fei refused her with righteous indignation. I said I'd stay close to protect you, and I'm sticking to that responsibility. From now on, you sleep on the bed, and I'll sleep on the floor. Get lost. The next morning, as soon as Su Li woke from her dreams, she caught a whiff of a delicious aroma. Rubbing his still groggy eyes, he opened the bedroom door. There on the dining table downstairs were 2 bowls of steaming noodles, each topped with a fried egg. Chu Fei just came out of the kitchen. Awake? Hurry up and wash up, then have breakfast. Su Li pursed her lips. This was the first time a man had cooked for her. Fine. She quickly went downstairs, washed up, and came to the table. Looking at the steaming noodles in the bowl, she couldn't help but feel her appetite stir. Who would have thought you could cook? I thought you were just a rich second generation. She let out a soft laugh. There's a lot I can do. Want to give it a try? Chu Fei's lips curled up as he looked at Su Li. The latter instinctively covered her chest, a hint of pink spreading across her face. Go to hell, you brute. Chu Fei laughed heartily, saying nothing. After breakfast and changing clothes, Chu Fei drove Su Li to the company. However, as soon as he arrived at the company, he was called to the chairman's conference room for a meeting. Before entering the conference room, he could hear the shareholders arguing incessantly. With a cold expression, Su Li pushed open the conference room door. Shareholders, from what I'm hearing, you intend to have the company buy back your shares. Am I right? While outside the door, he had heard the shareholders discussing who to sell their shares to. Now, almost all companies in Jiangnan City, big and small, have stopped cooperating with them. The Zhao Group even openly declared that it would suppress Kiao Company. Naturally, companies with ties to the Zhao Group all terminated their contracts without question. Even those without ties chose to cancel contracts to curry favor with the Zhao Group. Now, Kiao Company is truly besieged on all sides. President Su. Although we don't know how you, the chairman, and the Zhao family negotiated, given the current situation, we have no choice. Unless you can tell us exactly what drug we are researching. Only then can we decide whether to sell our shares or increase our investment. A shareholder named Wang spoke up. He was one of the older shareholders of Kiao Company and also the earliest investor. Even he had no faith in the company's future, let alone the others. That's right, President Su. So far, we don't even know the direction of the company's latest research. How are we supposed to make a choice? Another shareholder chimed in. Su Li sneered inwardly. Among these shareholders, she wouldn't be surprised if some had already been bought off by the Zhao family. Because before the new drug research began, all shareholders had signed a contract agreeing not to inquire about the research direction or purpose until the new drug was developed. And now, with so many speaking up, she couldn't rule out the possibility that some had already become pawns of the Zhao Group. Since that's the case, then there's no choice left. Gentlemen, who among you wishes to sell their shares? I'll buy them all at today's opening price. Recently, Kiao's stock price had been plummeting, and many retail investors had already caught wind and sold off their shares. And as soon as the market opened this morning, the stock price dropped by nearly 10%. President Su, that's not quite reasonable. With such a sharp drop in stock prices, not buying at the original price is one thing, but you're asking us to sell at a loss. Even capitalists wouldn't do that, would they? A somewhat chubby shareholder, wearing glasses, spoke with considerable dissatisfaction. After all, when the stock price drops, they lose money too. Then what do you shareholders suggest? Su Li's face turned somewhat cold as she looked at the shareholders present. Her father hadn't come today, probably aware of the situation here. Likely, he wanted her to handle things herself. Nothing special. We've all discussed it. For the company buyback, we won't take advantage of the company, just use yesterday's opening price. Su Li let out a cold laugh. It seems you shareholders have planned this all along, haven't you? In that case, you can keep your shares or go see if anyone else is willing to take them. Given the current state of Kiao Company, no one would take it over. Unless that person is a fool. President Su, you've gone too far with that. It was agreed from the start that if the company faced a crisis, it would buy back the shares. Now you're backing out? We signed a contract, didn't we? Could it be that President Su wants us to sue? That wouldn't be a good move. As soon as the shareholder, surnamed Wang, spoke, the other shareholders present broke into smiles. In fact, Su Li's guess was correct. All the shareholders present had been bought off by the Zhao Group. Today, besides selling off their shares, they were also trying to pry out information about Kiao Company's research drug. If they could get that information, each of them would receive a substantial sum. Moreover, the Zhao Group was willing to buy their shares at a high price. Unfortunately, Su Li's lips were sealed too tight, they couldn't pry anything out. That's right. We did sign a contract, but don't forget, everyone, that the contract stated it would be a buyback at the opening price of that day. I think all shareholders should have seen the contract, right? Su Li's words effectively cut off the shareholders' retreat. Shareholder Wang's expression turned grim. They had come to negotiate terms, but instead found themselves at her mercy. If any of you wish to sell your shares, you'd better act quickly. Otherwise, once the company goes bankrupt, the shares you hold will be worthless. With that, Su Li turned and left the conference room, leaving the major shareholders exchanging stunned glances. Back in her office, Su Li's expression was dark. Those guys were clearly bribed. They had actually dared to try to pry the research drug formula out of her. It seemed the company was overdue for a shake-up. But once she bought out the shares of these shareholders, the remaining funds wouldn't last long. The thought made her head spin. My dear CEO, what happened? Need any help? Su Li shook head. It's nothing, just some annoying stuff at the company. Chu Fei nodded and didn't say much more. He sat down, took out his phone, and simply sent a text message. The message was straightforward. Invest $2 billion in Jiangnan Kiao Company. At noon. Come with me for a walk later to clear my mind. No need to drive. Su Li put down her work. The company was still running normally now, although many people had resigned. It didn't yet affect the company's overall operations. Is this your way of asking me out on a date? Chu Fei raised an eyebrow and looked at Su Li with a grin. Su Li rolled her eyes at him. Think whatever you want. The two left the company and walked along the bustling streets. The September weather was neither hot nor cold. Agent al breeze blew, lifting Su Li's spirits a vite. By the way, ruffian, do you have a girlfriend? No sooner had she spoken than she regretted it the next second. I don't know why, but this question suddenly popped into my head. No way. What? You want to be my girlfriend? The requirements for being my girlfriend are pretty high. Can you meet them? Forget it. Since you brought it up, I can't really refuse. I'll reluctantly let you be my girlfriend. Chu Fei wore a hint of helplessness on his face and let out a long sigh. Su Li shot him a fierce glare. In your dreams. There are enough people chasing me to circle all of Jiangnan. Do you think I'd fancy you? Who would have thought? Chu Fei just shrugged. You know in your heart whether you're into it. Su Li, can you have some shame? We're out in public. She was going crazy. This guy was always so unprofessional. Just as the two were teasing each other, Chu Fei suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. Every hair on his body stood on end. In an instant, he pulled Su Li into his arms and turned to look at the window on the third floor in the distance. But there was no one at the window. However, Su Li mistakenly thought he was trying to take advantage of her. In an instant, her pretty face flushed bright red. She shoved him away fiercely and angrily shouted, "You brute. Don't mess around. Chu Fei frowned deeply, his eyes fixed on the window on the third floor across the street. If his instincts were correct, the faint sense of danger just now had come from that window. From the moment he pulled Su Li into his arms to when he turned to look over, it had only taken a second, yet the other party had managed to disappear. That was enough to prove the other party was no ordinary person. Pressed tightly in Chu Fei's embrace, Su Li's face burned. Feeling his strong heartbeat, she experienced an unprecedented sense of safety for reasons she couldn't explain. It seemed that as long as she leaned in this man's arms, no danger could come near her. All right, it's okay now. Chu Fei slowly released his embrace, but Su Li felt a hint of disappointment. Coming back to her senses, her complexion returned to normal. Did something happen just now? Chu Fei shook his head and grinned at her. Nothing. I just wanted to get fresh with you. Su Li rolled her eyes at him. Go to hell. But inside, Chu Fei's heart was ice cold. He was wondering whether the other party was after him or after Su Li. If it was aimed at him, then the other party would definitely show up again. But if it was aimed at Su Li, then it was unclear. Since his master had ordered him to protect Su Li, it meant that Su Li was definitely in danger. And now that the danger had arrived, he would see how to handle it. Just then, Su Li received a call from Fong Qing. Hello, Xiao Qing. Xiao Su, where are you? I'm so upset. Come have a drink with me, okay? I'm at Zue Yuqing Bar. Fong Qing's slightly drunk voice came through the phone. Okay, wait for me. Su Li arrived at the bar with Chu Fei by car. As soon as they entered, they saw Fong Qing sitting on the sofa. But her condition wasn't good at the moment. She was drunk, and there was a man beside her making moves on her, but Fong Qing kept resisting. Su Li quickly stepped forward and yanked the man away. Who are you? What are you doing to my bestie? The man was obviously quite drunk, his breath reeking of alcohol. Oh, another beauty shows up. Come on, beauty, have a drink with me. As he spoke, the man reached out to put his arm around Su Li's neck. He even picked up a bottle of alcohol, pretending to pour it into Su Li's mouth. Chu Fei grabbed the man's hand firmly, his expression icy. Get lost. Having his wrist grabbed, the man obviously got angry. Do you know who I am? You dare touch me? Believe me, I can make sure you never leave this door today. The man drunkenly shouted at Chu Fei. Without any hesitation, he swung the bottle in his hand toward Chu Fei's head. Those around watched, but no one dared to step in. For no other reason than that this guy was Su Hui, the son of a bureau director and a regular at the bar. Hitting on the staff and random pretty girls at the bar was nothing new for him. Who would dare to mess with him? But Chu Fei wasn't going to let him get away with it. Just as the bottle was about to come down, he raised his hand and slapped the man hard across the face. Slap! The loud slap stunned many of those present, and Su Hui was jolted awake by that slap. Now, are you sober? Chu Fei released his grip, staring at Su Hui with a cold expression. The latter shook his still dazed head, glaring at Chu Fei with venomous eyes. You dare hit me? In this bar, no one had ever dared to challenge him before. He never expected to get beaten up on his own turf. How could he swallow that? Will you walk out on your own, or should I throw you out? Chu Fei's tone was very calm. But his smile was ice cold. Fine, if you've got guts, don't you dare leave. With that, he dragged his drunken body out of the bar. Only then did Su Li sit beside Fong Qing, gently patting her on the back. Why did you drink so much? Fong Qing burst into tears. Wah, that bastard Lin Shui broke up with me. My heart feels so awful. Fong Qing hugged Su Li, tears and mucus streaming down her face, crying uncontrollably. At that moment, the bar owner came out. You three, better leave now. That guy is not someone you can mess with. He is the son of the District Enforcement Bureau chief. He knows a lot of thugs. If you don't go now, you won't be able to get away later. The owner looked worried too. If these three didn't leave, his bar wouldn't be able to stay open. If a fight broke out, heaven knows how much he'd lose. Seeing Fong Qing like this, Su Li knew they couldn't stay any longer. Thanks, boss. We'll leave now. She then shot Chu Fei a look, and together they helped Fong Qing up to leave. But, just as they reached the door, Su Hui, the one Chu Fei had slapped, came back. Only this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him stood at least a dozen thugs, each with dyed hair and a cigarette dangling from their mouths. It's him. Su Hui looked at Chu Fei, his eyes filled with ferocity. Su Li, seeing this, stepped back while supporting Fong Qing. Chu Fei took a step forward, gazing at the dozen or so thugs in front of him. That slap just now didn't wake you up, did it? Want another 2 slaps to properly clear your mind? As soon as he finished speaking, one of the thugs spoke up. Damn, how dare you talk to our brother Hui like that? Brothers, let's get him. The dozen thugs immediately charged forward, ready to punch and kick Chu Fei. Su Hui stood aside, a cold smirk on his face. Daring to hit him, he would make him crawl out of here. But things didn't go as he expected. The so-called brothers who rushed up were taken down by Chu Fei in the blink of an eye. With a few punches and kicks, over a dozen people were already lying on the ground. Each one lay there, wailing in agony. Su Hui hadn't even reacted before the men he'd brought were already down on the ground. If it weren't for the fact that these guys had been with him for quite a while, he would have suspected they were actors hired by the other side. They were that easy to beat. Given the situation now, what else could he do?